when you run a city in existing, when you run a project in an existing city, it works. When you run a project that's kind of an experiment on the network state side, you don't really know. And so I think you want to keep these two things in conversation. I think they eventually grow together.
Definitely, yeah, thank you. And for example, of let's say such a decentralized case of network states as Cabin, can you share your perspective on them? How you've seen them develop? What's your idea of their mission at this time?
I can't speak to Cabin. I'm not a Cabin member. I have friends that are members of it that have had a great time and that have met other really cool people, but I don't know much more than that.
Got it. Yeah. Their approach to, let's say, having different locations in their network is very favored by me personally. Also,
Mm-hmm.
not been part of like community meetups. There are a few nodes here in Europe, but they're not so active. I think there's only one person who reached out to me from those groups, who was also interested to kind of like keep building. But I believe that there's just still this network effect that is needed to decentralize that initiative from the United States and other places.
Mm.
So, and then let's kind of like see communications approach for such developments. For example, Praxis has a very strong, very intense, let's say, way of communicating their values and their perspectives. What do you think about their approach versus anyone else that you see in this current movement?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so Dryden, the guy that runs Praxis, who sets that tone through essays and talks and different things like that, um, I think he does a great job. He obviously has developed a persona, which is like, it's almost, I don't know what to call it. Like, it's almost like techno shamanic or something, you know? Like, he kind of like has this really strong vision of the future, which he, um, just like just very confidently conveys. And it's interesting, it's cool. I think the ecosystem needs people like that. I think the ecosystem needs people with clarity of vision that are willing to be very unabashed in their claims and what they're trying to do. I think there will be a lot of different forms, ways to communicate, and I think that's one of them. And I'm glad that they do that. I'm usually inspired by what he's doing.
Yeah, and what comes to me is that diversity or polyphony, someone said in our network, of voices. So that what does it mean? What is that symphony that we're creating with it? And again,
Mm.
what is the overall vision? And I think you're doing a great work in stepping towards bringing those different voices together and setting the vision even more clearly for the greater audience to really understand what's behind it. But what is behind it for you? What kind of world that you'd like to live in the future? I stopped asking this question in my interviews, but see it from perspective of 2030s, 2035, 10 years ahead. What you see has changed, how you've been able to contribute.
So this would be like what kind of where I would like it to go, or where I think it's going to go.
Oh, great question. Your hopes and dreams.
Yeah, well, my hopes and dreams is that the U.S. has a sort of second renaissance, or I don't know if we can say second. It has a renaissance of,
Yeah.
yeah, we didn't really necessarily, so, but like a great period of rediscovering what we can offer to the world, because the entire West is struggling, and I do think what I'm finding is that the U.S. and in a sort of challenging populist way is at least stating that it's unacceptable, right? This decline is unacceptable, and we have to do something about it. And so, what I would like to see happen is, I'm personally very encouraged that Elon Musk is involved with the government. The guys like Mark Andreessen are going to Mar-a-Lago and trying to influence the way that we govern presently, or at least the way that we run our government, because tech is demonstrably the most efficient sector in the United States right now. They're the ones who actually have to create consumer products from scratch that add value, that provide value at scale, and then go global. And they do that in a way which is just incredible. And if you compare that to other things like other retail brands, car companies, appliance manufacturers, those in the US are like in decline, right? And like almost none of them are providing really good things. But tech, like your laptop, your Apple devices, various devices, like those things are really, really good. But like your dishwasher or something probably is not. And so I think what we're seeing in the United States, which is like tech improving governance, or at least applying putting its attention on it, is very important. And I think by 2035, what tech we could be in an area of like incredible experimentation, because what tech wants is it wants to be free to experiment. And this is where it comes in with network states, is they probably want jurisdictions, things like special economic zones, where they can just experiment with things and create new systems, and that's going to go to governance. I have a scenario in my head right now where Elon gets so sick of trying to deal with the federal government through Doge. Like he sees that the red tape is either impossible to deal with or just not worth it. And the epiphany he comes to is we need jurisdictions where these insane regulations just don't even apply, for the sake of accelerating. Some people are calling special economic zones things like acceleration zones now, places where we can go and create substantial improvements in technology, just like the US did throughout the 20th century. So we do that in the physical world more than we've been doing mostly in the digital world. We do more of that in the physical world. And through doing that, through the creation of these special jurisdictions, I think we can create experiments in governance. And like, how are we going to govern ourselves if we have if we're not relying on the government for socialized healthcare, which is extraordinarily broken, and if we're able to retain those funds, how can we more efficiently allocate those funds to create much healthier people? So I think you have to be free of the present system in order to engage in that experiment. You can't engage in an experiment of like, how can we more efficiently spend healthcare funds with the present system? It won't allow you to do so. So that's my bullish 2025 theory, is that like through the desire for special economic zones and acceleration zones, we can create governance experiments which allow us to just be way more efficient and effective in the services that people get provided. And then that becomes the seed for future governance systems that can take root around the world and will be mimicked the same way that our democracy was mimicked around the West.
Another case of this place, let's put it this way, the one in the Latin America's Roatan Island. The government has changed, and then what's going to happen with all the real estate investment? I like the experimentation with health part there. Who watches over the experimentational health part then? I mean, so many questions. What's your point? What's your take on this experiment there?
On Prospera?
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to admit I haven't been to Prospera. I'm going to try and go sometime in the next couple of years, but I haven't gone. And
same.
So I don't know.
I get it.
I love that they're doing it. I have a friend who's an investor there. I have friends that spend time there and do stuff in Vitalia. And all I can say is we need experiments like that.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they did it in Honduras, which is like a very turbulent government, right? They've been in legal battles with that government lately.
Yeah.
You're probably aware. And so they had to go far out on the risk curve in order to get the level of sovereignty they wanted. So they had to deal with like a very dodgy government. And that's kind of how these experiments would begin. But I spent a lot of time in Costa Rica. I lived part-time. Well, I lived full-time in Costa Rica for almost 5 years.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in Latin America, and from my vantage point, and I still go back there all the time, from my vantage point, a lot of those governments, I think they're looking at people like Milei, they're looking at people like Bukele in El Salvador, and they're seeing that the potential for innovation is there. And I think that a lot of other nations that are more stable than Honduras can start to house experiments like that in the next couple decades, and that'll be really fruitful.
Interesting. Cool. This is super rich. I think this is a good time to end, unless you have any questions from me. Maybe the DAO course, anything about the how to DAO, how it's happening now. I'd like an update, and to wrap it up.
Yeah, well, so the course that we're running right now is put on by one of the authors of the book How to DAO. His name is Punkar, and the other co-host is a guy named Gideon, who has a lot of experience with DAOs. We're closing our second cohort today.
Nice.
It was really exciting. They started a DAO. Like, it's been a really fruitful, cool experience, I guess. And we're going to do a third cohort probably in the summer. We tend to wait about 2 months between cohorts, and so you can go to nsconnect.xyz and keep up with us there. And yeah, various other things. I'm Matt_Harder on Twitter. If you ever want to DM me with questions around this kind of stuff. I don't know when we're going to announce the third cohort, but if you're interested in that How to DAO thing, just get in touch and we'll make sure that you hear about it.
Writers cohort as well coming up?
Yeah, I was just talking to Jim Nomad about that. He's one of the guys who's going to be volunteering. Now that How to DAO is closing the second cohort, we are going to do a writers cohort. You going to come?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're hashing out the media model at Bitcoin 2025, myself and
Great.
collaborators. And so
Great.
we'll either do it before or after. We might wait till after